Let's look at Learning Objective 2.2a, which is identify linear functions. A linear function is an equation that looks something like y equals 2x plus 1. The key here is when you look at the x value, the highest exponent you're going to see is a 1. That's what makes it linear. If you see an equation such as y equals 2x cubed, that is not considered linear because the exponent is higher than a 1. That is something else. Now, if it's a linear function, you might see it be written in function notation. The only difference is you're still going to have the y equals 2x plus 1. And again, the 2x and the 1 will vary depending on the problem. But for function notation, the y gets replaced with the notation of f of x. And that's called function notation. So overall, what happens is y is the same as f of x. If you see f of x in a function notation format, you actually can just rewrite it if you want to, using y instead. So here you see function notation. On letter A, they say f of x equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. If you prefer, you can just write it as y equals. It means the same thing. For B, again, they use g of x. That just means y equals. For C, they use h of x. That just means y equals. The question is, they want you to say if these are linear. So remember to be linear when you write it out. For example, this is linear because when you look at the x value, the highest exponent is a 1. So when we look at letter A, we can clearly tell f is not a linear function because it has an exponent of 2. The problem is that little squared there. Okay? When you look at B, you have to be careful. Notice my format up here of what is linear. There's only one level. It's not written as a fraction. I will tell you letter B, this particular function, is not considered linear because I have an issue. The x on the top is just fine, but you cannot have an x value or a variable on the bottom written as a fraction. This will not give you a linear shape. It has to only look at like it's at one level, the top of the fraction. So here g is not a linear function. Letter C here says y equals -4. Now here you have to be careful. This actually is a linear function. It's a little bit trickier. It can be written as a linear function like this. They could do y equals 0x minus 4. So in this case, if I had shown you this format instead, you're going to probably think it looks similar to this top one, which is linear, which is true. But the problem is anything times 0 goes away, so technically they didn't show that. So be careful. This is linear, and again I'm going to put it because you could write it like this. If this were the case, we're going to touch on this a little more in the chapter. Don't forget, if you can recall from regular algebra, y equals mx plus b is the format of a line. The number in front of x is called the slope. So m is the slope, which is 0. B is right here as the y-intercept is -4. Let's conclude this learning objective by looking at these 4 and determining if they're linear or not. Again, if you prefer, you can change all the f of x, the g of x, the h of x, and the r of x to a y instead. I will tell you 2 of these are linear. The one that's linear for sure is number 1. Again, the highest exponent here is x to the first, and there's only the x is at the top of our fraction. The other one that's linear is number 4. This could be written as 1/9, and the x would be on the top, and that's fine. These other 2 are not linear. This one I have an issue with the cubed. And this one I have an issue because the x is on the bottom of the fraction. If the x had been on the top of the fraction for this one, such as h of x was 9x, that would be linear, but this one is not. So these 2 are not linear.